Okay, so let's get one thing straight right from the start. This is not about productivity hacks. We're not going to talk about doing more. This is really just a gentle conversation about, well, creating lightness. The kind where your days don't feel like something you're just trying to survive. So let's dive in and explore what the architecture of lightness really looks like. So, does this feel familiar at all? I mean, on paper, everything looks fine, right? You've got the job, the relationships, the routine. It all seems to check out. But on the inside, there's just this weight, this feeling of being burdened. And maybe you can't even put your finger on why. It's like this quiet exhaustion that just kind of follows you around all day. If any of that resonates, you are absolutely in the right place. And look, this doesn't mean you're ungrateful or that you're doing something wrong. It just means that life, you know, it can get crowded with things we never even consciously chose to carry. All right, so let's start by just acknowledging that feeling. This heaviness, it is not a personal failure. Not at all. It's actually a super common human experience, especially in a world that asks so much of us. And the goal here, it's definitely not to add another thing to your to-do list. It's actually the opposite. It's about subtraction. It's about creating enough internal space so your energy can finally belong to you again, and your nervous system isn't just stuck in this constant state of high alert. You know, if we want to change something, we first have to understand it. So why? Why does life start to feel so heavy in the first place? Well, a big part of the answer is actually in how our brains are wired. See, our brains have like a finite capacity, a limited tank for decisions, for expectations, for all those emotional responsibilities. And psychological heaviness? That's just what happens when we push way past that limit. So again, it's not about being weak, it's about being overloaded. Okay, now this is what's so fascinating. Your nervous system, it doesn't really differentiate. That super important work project and that people-pleasing favor you said yes to your internal system, it's all just pressure. It registers the same way. And that's why a calendar packed with so-called good things can still leave you feeling completely drained. I mean, just think about it for a second. How many different versions of you are required to show up every single day? You've got the responsible one at work, the supportive friend, the always available family member, the person who replies to text right away. All that fragmentation, that constant switching between roles, that creates a huge internal. So what happens when this state of heaviness becomes our normal, our baseline? Well, the costs go way beyond just feeling tired. They start to creep in and affect our emotional and psychological well-being in some really subtle but pretty serious ways. The first hidden cost is something like emotional numbness. See, when your nervous system is just constantly overloaded, it has to adapt. And one way it does that is by shutting down the more subtle emotions. It's basically a coping mechanism to conserve energy. And this really hits the nail on the head. It's not that the joy is gone from your life, it's that the capacity to feel it has been crowded out by all that constant pressure and demand. It's a capacity issue, not an absence of happiness. Huge difference. The second cost? Chronic irritability. You know the feeling, right? Snapping at people you love, getting super annoyed by a totally normal request, just wanting to be alone, but then feeling guilty about it. Small things feel overwhelming, not because they are overwhelming, but because you are already at your limit. Again, this isn't a personality flaw. It is a blinking red light, a clear signal of overload. And the third cost is self-betrayal. Think about it. When you're just completely exhausted, you start saying yes on autopilot. Not because you actually want to, but because you literally don't have the energy left in the tank to negotiate for your own needs. And over time, this teaches your subconscious a really dangerous lesson. Every single one of those automatic yeses reinforces the message, my needs come last. And that just slowly chips away at your self-worth. And it keeps that whole cycle of heaviness going. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the problem and its hidden costs. So now what? How do we actually begin to design a lighter life? Well, the key here is to take gentle, really practical steps. Remember how we said this is about subtraction, not addition? That's where we start. Before you even think about optimizing your routine, just ask yourself, what can I let go of? We're aiming for a breathable schedule. It doesn't have to be empty. It just needs to have room for you to, exist without rushing from one thing to the very next. And this goes for emotional commitments too. This is all about setting energetic boundaries. And here's the thing, you can be a deeply, deeply caring person without having to take on the responsibility for other people's moods, their sense of urgency, or their expectations of you. This phrase right here, I can care without carrying. It's so powerful. Let that be a mantra for you. It's what separates empathy from enmeshment. It lets you be supportive while also protecting your own energy, which is absolutely essential if you want to create lightness. Now, this is a really fundamental shift in perspective. It's a total game changer. Instead of letting the clock dictate every minute of your life, what if you started paying attention to your own energy levels? Start noticing what drains you and what restores you. And then actually design your days to honor that reality. When you do this, you start to build self-trust, and it creates this amazing, natural sense of calm. All right, so ultimately, creating a lighter life really requires us to redefine what we even think of as a successful life. For so long, right, so many of us have been taught to define success by our capacity to just endure. We measure our worth by how much we can carry, how much we can juggle, how much we can possibly take on. But this new question, it changes everything. It shifts the focus from endurance to experience. Suddenly, success isn't about quantity anymore. It's about quality. It becomes about feeling present in your own life, about actually having energy left over at the end of the day, and about choosing peace without feeling like you have to justify it to anyone. And that, right there, is really the core takeaway from all of this. A light life is not a lazy life. It's a self-respecting life. This isn't about being irresponsible or throwing away your ambition. It's just about respecting your own limits, your own humanity. Lightness isn't another goal you have to achieve. It's a state you allow yourself to return to once you start clearing away the things that are weighing you down. So I want to leave you with this one final question. And please, don't feel like you have to answer it right away. Just let it sit with you. What would my life look like if it didn't have to feel so heavy? Let that question be a quiet guide, maybe one that can lead you back home to a life that truly, finally feels like your own.